to another Saturday morning weekly live stream. Hello, Randall. Hello, Danny. How are you, gentlemen, this morning?
What up?
What up? What up?
Good.
Happy Saturday, July 5th at 9 a.m. on the dot.
I just noticed, are you wearing a Britney Spears sweatshirt?
I am.
Or t-shirt, Russ?
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It's Britney, bitch.
Well done. Yeah.
It's great, bitch.
Yeah.
Get over it.
You know, it's one of my like pride and joy shirts. You know, gotta
There you
represent
go.
Britney. Nobody hates Britney, you know. Did you know that Britney actually lives in Mexico and changed her name to Maria? Believe it or
That would
not.
not surprise me.
It's
if
true.
that's
It's literally true.
I mean, she gets harassed all the time, so it wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me to like
She'll
run
be
away
like,
from her.
Britney! And she's like, sorry, my name is Maria.
Sorry, it's Maria.
Maria Consuela Espinosa Garcia Rodriguez
Spears.
Jimenez.
Dude, I don't know. It's gotta be hard being like young into that stuff when like your parents and everybody like has their hands in everything
Oh,
and
God,
like steals
yeah.
from you and stuff. Oh
Yeah.
God, it must be horrible.
I remember there was this movie with Eminem and Ray Romano in it, and it was like a depressing movie. But Eminem was talking about how his life sucks because he can't even do normal stuff like go to Walmart without just being swamped with people.
Well, that's what you
Yeah,
get
it's
for
just-
being a celebrity too. I mean, you kind of gotta like sign up. You know you're signing up for that. But I totally get it. I saw something like with
It's hard
Mr.
to feel bad
Beast.
for him when he's like the #1 selling like
Yeah,
rapper
you're
and
like,
stuff,
oh,
you know?
poor you, and all of your millions of dollars. Ooh, so sad. I saw something like that with Mr. Beast, where he was talking about how basically if like one person sees him, they ask him for a photo, and then it turns into like hours of taking photos with people, and he has to
It's a
literally
catch-22. You
hide.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like if people catch on to where he's staying, like what hotels he's staying in, he won't be able to exit. Like it's really bad. But you know,
But
that's
it is.
part
But you
of
gotta also be nice to those people because they're the people that are paying. You know?
exactly. Yeah. It's
They're
like,
the people buying all the stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hola y buenos días y feliz 5 de Julio. Charles. Charles
What's up?
said hello. Let me
I
translate
figured
for you.
that.
He said hello, good day, and happy 5th of July.
I actually could figure that out on my own.
Oh.
Remember Arrested Development the day
Just kidding.
after Cinco de Mayo, Cuatro de Cinco? It's like, anyways, don't we have like a coding podcast?
We
or something
do,
that we do?
yeah.
And we have a topic.
Today we have a pretty interesting topic. I think this is a good one. Shout out to Anthony, who's former member of our web dev incubator and regularly watches the show, hangs out with us.
And he asked a good question too, which I
Yeah.
think is something like I'll be honest too, because I remember like when I never thought of this, and it's like,
Yeah.
because at first you're worried about learning, but he asked us like, how do you price like as a new dev, either like your hours or like if you have a product that you're putting out there, how do you figure out like what to charge?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've sort of answered that inside of our private community before, but I don't think we've ever really addressed it here.
I don't think we have, no.
I think we should sort of separate it into two different things because there's a distinct difference between pricing your own.
Well, I think like why don't we talk about like
hours.
freelance hours, and then
Yeah.
we'll talk about like products
then, like,
too,
an
because there's a
app.
huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys want to start, or I'm happy to give you sort of my 2 cents. I don't know.
I mean,
Well, there's this
okay.
incredible dev tracker tool.
There is.
that
That was
I
right.
think
I have
is
to
in
like
beta and
rebuild
hasn't
that.
been formally
Yeah,
released. But
right.
yeah, it works really well.
Yeah,
Why do
I'll
you
have
think- I don't
to
know.
revibe code that up.
I think that probably the biggest thing most people struggle with when they first start, especially like on their early projects, is like valuing themselves correctly.
Yeah, and
'Cause,
like
like-
how much to charge. I mean,
And also, and scope creep, not letting the people like run over
Yes.
them with free stuff. I think those are like the biggest things. Like, and so I think like honestly, like, pricing wise, if you're doing something for a friend or something, it's whatever, if it's your first thing, but like usually like
Yeah.
50 to 75 is a good starting point, I think, per hour for your work, because it's gonna
Yeah.
take you longer, but it's also you got to value yourself for what you're doing and the intelligence. Yeah. Yeah.
I just actually had a thought when it came to this. So like if you take a look at the jobs that you would want to do, like let's say you're looking for some type of developer job and you see that they pay $102,000 a year. Well, it turns out that's $51 an hour.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
just charge that much and plug that in for your hours.
yeah. I
That's a
had
good way to do it.
I had an interesting conversation actually at a meetup recently with this lady who is an interior designer, and she wanted me to build her a website. And I asked her, I was like, have you ever talked to anyone else about having like building you a website? And she's like, yeah, I talked with this agency and they wanted to charge me like $15,000 to do like the website and the branding and like all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, I mean, that sounds reasonable. Like, what did you have
That's
in
not that
mind?
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what did you want? And she's like, well, I don't know. And one of the things that I've seen frequently when people first find out that you're a developer is everybody wants like to be the idea person and give you the idea as
Yeah.
the developer to like build the whole thing, and then they'll just take half of the cut of it. Like it's a very common thing. I'm sure you guys have
Dude,
experienced that
Yes.
what
before.
that's the thing. Like ideas are a dime a dozen. Not even.
Yeah.
Ideas are like,
They're like
a infinity
tenth of a
for
penny
nothing.
a
Yeah.
dozen.
I remember I knew this guy who got so bent out of shape because somebody actually
Stole
executed
his
his
idea.
ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he had this idea that he talked about for years and years and years and never did anything. And then somebody
Yeah.
else did it. And he was so pissed off that they would do that. I'm like, dude, the idea
He
is the
didn't do
easy
anything.
part.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the execution. And
Mhm.
so this lady was, I had this conversation with her because I was like, explain to me exactly what you want. And then she started explaining and she's like, well, I want a website. And I was like, okay, what will the website do? And she's like, well, it'd be great if it could like sell stuff. I'm like, okay, so now you want an e-commerce website. And she's like, yeah, and it would be great if it could do like virtual like renders of things. And like, okay, now you're talking about a web app and a e-commerce site.
Yeah.
And I was like, so how much do you think you should pay somebody to do that? And she's like, I don't know. Like, I was hoping to get it like maybe under $1,000. And I was like, okay, listen, when I go to get my hair cut, that person makes $50 for a half hour of time to cut my
Yeah.
hair, right? That's $100 an hour for a hair cutter, like a barber, okay? That's a very low skill job. I'm not to discredit barbers. I'm sure it's difficult, but like you don't need to know everything about JavaScript and all these different platforms and like tools and things to cut hair. You just need to know how to use scissors pretty well, right? So I said that to her. I was like, so what do you think a developer should charge? Like clearly more than $100 an hour. And what you just explained is maybe at least like, I don't know, maybe like 1,000 hours of work. Like that's a lot of work to build all that
Yeah.
stuff. I'm like, just do the basic math and you'll figure out like you're asking like for basically something amazing for nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's what everybody wants, though, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's what's also hard, and people have to realize too, because I think this is something like you have to keep in mind, like when you're doing freelance work too, you're not getting benefits, you're not getting anything. All
Yes.
you're getting is the pay, and everything else is on you. So you have to also like keep that in mind. Like it might sound high what you're charging an hour, but it's like it's your time, it's valuable, and
Yeah.
that's all they're paying for is that project. That's why they're going to somebody like you because they don't want to hire somebody full
Yeah.
time. You know?
And I think as developers, we undervalue how much we know and how much like other people don't know that stuff. Like even just simple stuff like setting up DNS records, like most
Yeah.
people's eyes would glaze over at seeing something like that.
Even stuff like installing a program on your computer.
Yeah.
It's crazy because,
Yeah.
I mean, we joke about it, but we all went to a boot camp years ago, and the first class, half the people couldn't even figure out how to install VS Code on their computer.
No,
And it's
and
just
God
like,
forbid with
this
Node and
is,
oh my God, Node
yeah,
and like
our jaws were just on the ground. We had
Yeah.
to pick them up and be like, okay, this is a bit slower than we thought it would be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the reality. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that there's really two ways to sort of price yourself as a freelance developer. Like I would say, and that kind of there's a line there between like freelance, like am I
Yeah.
building something for somebody, or a contractor where you're like working for a company. So there's like hourly or there's project based, right? So you can make an estimate of how many hours it will take you to build a project and then just do the math of like, you know, whatever, how many hours
This
that will
website will
be.
probably be 3,500 because it's going to take X number of hours.
And we've said this before inside our group is like always estimate more than what you think. So if you think, oh, it's going to take me 300 hours, add like 15 to 25% on top of that because
Especially
you're just
if
going
you're
to
new.
yeah, you're going to run into like issues that you didn't think you would.
Or you forget about testing, or you forget about
Yeah.
some little part that, you know, is going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you have to figure that in.
So there's project based, which is like one way, and what you were mentioning before, Danny, I think is really important. Is when you do project based, you have to make it very clear with people that there is no scope creep. Like you're defining exactly what you're building, and nothing else gets added to that. Everything else they can write in a list, and you'll charge them by hour, right?
It's
To
funny
add
because
those.
that's what'll happen. Like, I remember one of the first, well, the first client I ever had was like, I was basically a contractor for a company, but it worked
Yeah,
out great because I started out hourly. And so whenever they asked for new things, he was just like, just charge us hourly. And I was like, no
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's totally fine. I'll
Perfect.
do whatever you want,
Yep.
because it's like, you're just adding to this and
Yeah,
but we both knew, right? It's totally understood.
exactly. And you make that
But
clear.
and I think to your point, like if you're doing especially project-based or if you're working with individuals, like have a clear contract that
Yes.
specifies this is what's required of me. Here's how many meetings even. Like
Yes.
FaceTime, face-to-face meetings we're gonna
And how
have.
long those meetings are.
Yes, everything. And
Yeah.
it sounds petty, but it's true, and people will respect you more too, I think, because the more you
Yeah.
value yourself, the more they'll value you.
Totally. I think that's a huge point. And so, yeah, you can do like the hourly approach or the project based. And I think you were pretty accurate when you're saying, like, for new developers, $50 to $75 an hour for a US developer is fair.
Yeah.
If you're in another country, then you may, charge more in line with your cost of living, right? I think is the best way to put that.
Well, and we've also talked about this with people in the group too who are getting their first project. Like it's also like use your judgment, right? Because like sometimes like
Yeah.
you want a really good showpiece and like or something like that, and like, it's for a friend. So maybe you don't charge them as much and you don't mind.
Yeah.
But that's up to you, and those are decisions you make. But be careful about doing that all the time. Good
Yeah.
morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Anthony. This episode's for you, buddy. So if you got
Yeah.
questions, throw them in the comments. Um, this is inspired by you, man. So here you go. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much sums up that freelance, and if you, like you just said, if you are brand new to development, we recommend that you start for free or very, very low cost so that you can build some portfolio projects, like build
With
up.
people like, yeah.
Yeah, like help somebody that help somebody in need, do a project, like do a website for a local animal shelter who can't afford a nice website or something like that.
Or your
Um,
church or whatever, or like,
yeah,
or one of your family members says, I really
churches can
wish
afford a website, all
they
right.
can actually, yeah, they totally can. You know, Kick it out
But
of 10%.
yeah, but I mean that's a great way to do it. So the next part is sort of, when you build an app, and I think this is
The harder part.
the harder part, and there's more pieces to this. So like when you build, let's say you just built a new web app that does some function. How do you market that? How do you get your first clients?
And how do you price it?
And how do
It's
you
also the
price
hard
that?
part.
Yeah. And I think, you
Maybe
know,
start with pricing first and then work up
sure.
to, yeah, I think that's a good idea because we can talk about that a bit easier, I think. I can
Yeah.
explain, why don't we just talk about how we do it, I guess. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Go for
um,
it, Danny.
I mean, for myself at least, it depends on like, am I working alone or with others? That's
Hmm.
an important point because that can change. Because if I'm working by myself and it's a passion project, I know that I'm the only one that's putting in time initially. So
Yeah.
there's no concern there. Like, I mean, it's something I want to do.
Yeah.
And then it's really for me, it's looking at total cost per user
Hmm.
and then figuring out the pricing based on that. So like if I'm going to do like a monthly pricing, how much per user can I estimate given all the, back end fees? So like hosting services, function costs, how much are they going to cost per X number?
Yeah.
API costs, how much are they going to cost between X number? If I use Stripe or something for payments, what is their deduction? Figure all that out, figure a rough estimate per user, and then base my price off of that. So that I
Yeah.
know that I'm covered, so that if one user does say like a bunch of API calls and somebody else doesn't use a lot, you're still okay. You know that you're in the clear in terms of money that you're making, and then kind of figure it out based on that and go from there. And you can always
Yeah.
increase as you add features too
Go ahead,
later
Randall. I
on.
saw you raising
Yeah.
your
So
finger.
another thing that's helpful to do is use the tried and true model of the drug dealer, where you give them a little bit for
Yeah,
free up front,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get them hooked, and then
Yeah.
you start charging them. So you'll see that all over the
well, the
place. They
free
call it the
tier is
Yeah.
freemium
great.
model.
Yeah,
Yeah,
having that. Yeah,
freemium
Freemium.
model.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but basically you let the person try it out. So maybe they try it out one time, maybe they have limited abilities to use the app, whatever it is, just so they can get their teeth wet or sink their teeth into it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, once they're hooked, that's when you charge them the big
Yeah.
dollars.
That's right. That's right. I think that's a really good point. And you have to sort of think about strategies of how you can get somebody hooked in a sense, and like what is valuable, and then what can you take away or what can you not give them access to. That's sort of the logical next step. So like, there's different ideas for this. Like, do you do this by feature? So maybe like in the free tier, they only get certain features, or maybe the free tier is for a certain period of time, right? Like,
and then maybe you have like a plus and premium or something.
yeah. So like you look at things like even just Cursor, for example, they have a free tier that's you get, I think, a week or two for free. And it's long enough that you can get something good out of it where you're like, oh, this tool actually works. Like you can learn the tool, learn how to be good with it. And then by the time they block you where they're like, hey, you need to start paying, you're like, oh shit, I can't live without this now. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Or like ChatGPT as well, where it has the free tier where you can use some of the older models with limited usability. And then once it has enough of your data and you're really starting to enjoy it, it'll cut you off. And then you'll be like, I need it. I need my fix.
But
yeah,
that's,
exactly.
I think nowadays too, it's important to remember, like there's so many apps coming out all the time that like offering a free tier is important though, because it gives people a chance to actually try it too.
Yeah.
And see that it works and see that it's like something that they do need.
And another business model concept is the software as a service. So basically, you're buying something subscription based that's never going to be complete and that is difficult to cancel, because that's how because you could sell it for $100 up front, but you could sell it $20 a month and somebody will just buy it and then 2 months later they forget about it and they'll never cancel it. And then you get $250 per customer instead of $100 per customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to mention two things. One is with Danny, like when you were talking about doing the math on a customer, you do sort of have to factor in a lot of these different things, but you can also use rate limiting to prevent customers from abusing like early on. It's something to think about too. And not just early on, like the whole time. So rate limiting just means,
oh no, rate limiting is crucial. Yeah. Like you have a set number.
Only accepting a certain number of API calls per minute, or even like doing per month, right? You can track how many API calls they make. So on a free tier,
you don't want somebody going in just going
exactly right,
like constantly. Yeah.
But a lot of like, if you're building a sort of like AI wrapper app, it's going to be super cheap. Like a typical text-based AI call is going to be fractions of a penny, right?
Yeah. And you can also, I would also, this is another, sorry, on a side note.
No, go ahead.
It's like, look at the documentation, because all the docs will give you a clear breakdown of API charging and stuff. Like if you look at ChatGPT, you can look at every model, you can look at its price per million tokens, and a million tokens is a lot. You're doing text-based, like, you can even figure out how many calls you're going to get within that block, but like, look at that and look at the pricing, because that'll give you a good idea. And you'll see that it's like, you're talking about like a tenth of a penny sometimes, like less. It's crazy.
Yeah, super cheap. The other thing I was going to mention with what you were saying, Randall, about the SaaS, subscription model, I've heard from some developers like back and forth about whether they should do a monthly subscription or do like charge by sort of like I've used a credit-based system or use.
Yeah.
I personally like credit-based systems. One, because it dissociates money with the usage of the app. It's sort of like a casino. When you go to a casino, they give you chips instead of like using dollars.
And you get the money ahead of time because then they're going to use the tokens. Yeah,
exactly. And you can charge them for more than they would actually use and incentivize them to buy more. Like if you've ever heard of like movie theater pricing, basically you go to the movies and a small soda is like $3, a medium is like $5.50, and then a large is $6. And like, you might as well just get the large because it's only 50 cents more. You can do that with your pricing too, where you're like, one credit is like, I typically do this where one credit is some like ridiculously high amount, like $2 to $5. Like 20 credits is like $1 a piece, and then like 60 credits is like 70 cents a piece or something like that. So,
you go really low, higher you go, because the idea is you're getting that up front, and it really doesn't cost that much anyway. That's the funny part. Like I think, and you have to remember too, your team size I think is important because how many people are you paying out of this? Because that
Yeah.
can be a big factor, and you can always
Yes.
change this later. But onto the just being into it, like when you're launching, like having a beta and alpha phase two can be helpful. Like if you're testing
Yes.
the app and all, you can do a reduced price to try and get people to check it out, to try it. Even if it costs you or like you're breaking even, that can be fine if you're just getting like input back and trying to develop it to figure out like where you want to go with this marketing and stuff.
Yeah. So Anthony's saying in the comments, like the tokens thing, right? He's saying, I've seen a lot of tools use convert to
Yeah.
credit or token system to keep churn down. And I've heard that too, because I think people have somewhat become wise to like the monthly thing. They like consider that monthly thing better. I think it's honestly like a trade-off because a lot of people who will sign up for a monthly thing, you may get less people to sign up initially, but there's always going to be people who just let it ride and like don't
Yeah.
cancel it because it's just a pain. It's sort of like the gym membership idea is like, you
I
know,
just canceled my LinkedIn Learning thing after like 3 years, even though I haven't used it in the past year, because the
yeah,
last time or two I went to cancel it, it was like really, really a pain to cancel.
yes,
Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't let
exactly.
me cancel it from the app. I had to go to the website and then it
Yeah,
didn't work from the website. The page wouldn't load. And I
yeah.
contacted customer service and it took like 10
They're like,
minutes for
yeah,
anyone to
sorry.
respond and I just gave up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
crazy.
And
I think there's a
Anthony asked
trade-off
like
there. I
he
think,
asked about sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say also like a little sneaky thing you can do too is like if you use a credit-based system and you use like, let's say it costs like 3 credits to do like to run your service, you can sell credits in increments of 5 so that people have like 2 credits left over. So they have to buy like more to do, the next thing.
And
That's
I
all.
think it just yeah, it's finding that what works for you where you're going to get the users that you want and get traffic, but also make money. I mean, that's the idea, right? That's the goal. And you did build something. He asked a question. I don't know about this. I don't know if you guys do.
Before you
How
get
do you
into that,
guys
I'm just glad we covered a whole bunch of ethical business practices in this in
Yes.
this live stream.
Hey,
right?
listen, we live in a capitalist society, all right?
Whether you like it or not,
Ethics
it's
is
pay
out
to
the
play.
window.
Yeah.
Everything is. No, he said, how do you guys feel about placing your app on Product Hunt? I don't know what
Yeah.
that is.
I've heard of Product Hunt before. It's just a way to sort of like put your app out there. I think Product Hunt is a good place to put your app after you've beta tested it and had some people use it, because it's one of those things where like I think you can probably get some good traction if people enjoy it, but if it's not polished, then you're probably
Hmm.
not going to get a lot out of it.
On that point too, if you're new and you're building apps, like you're building passion projects, for the first time you're getting stuff out there, it is important to beta test too, because in case you make a mistake
Yes.
or you realize you don't, it's hard to, it's hard to figure out what users are going to do because you never know. Like,
Yeah.
are they just going to hit this button constantly and cause a problem?
Yes.
Like,
So how do you do
did you
that?
like,
Because we have like the blindness where we look at it all the time and we try out the same type of things on
yeah,
it and we don't see the errors. So how do you actually beta test it in an
Mhm.
effective way?
it's getting people that aren't you to use it,
Yeah.
basically. But also, like, as a developer, you can obviously, I think you use it as an individual, go through the full cycle, user cycle, mess around with stuff, hit things, look at it carefully. Like just a good idea, just real quick, is like if you have an API call, are you disabling the button and showing processing so that
Yeah.
people can't click it more than once and
Yeah.
then cause that API to call more than once? Stuff like that is stupid seeming, but it also matters when it comes to pricing and functionality.
Yeah, definitely important. One other thing I would add there is a tool called Sentry, which is really good for. Uh, it's sort of like a tool that hooks into your web app and can report errors. But it is a paid tool, but I think they have like a free version as well. But you can actually see what a user sees when an error happens. So you can see like what action they took on your app and see like, and it actually blocks out like private information as well. So you can see like, hey, if a user hit some sort of error that broke your app or something like that, it'll show you like a live replay of what they were doing, which is kind
That's
of
cool.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a really good one to use as well. But I agree with you. I mean, the best way to test an app is to have other people do it, because they're going to expose edge cases where it's like, things that you didn't expect a user to do. The other thing that you're going to get to is it's sort of like If you guys remember writing essays in school when you would forget a word and you just read it perfectly every time,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Your
Was
brain,
that before ChatGPT?
yes,
Your
yes,
brain
long
fills it
before.
in. Your brain makes it appear what you think you
Yeah.
expect it, or you're
Hmm.
And
expecting.
so the same thing with app development. We have this expectation of how the app's supposed to work. So we'll just open up the app and do what we naturally know is supposed to be how we use it. But other people may not know that they're supposed to click on a button to start, an app process or something like that. So that's important feedback. I think, one thing that I've done in the past is I've offered free credits to people in exchange for being a beta tester and providing feedback, right? So that's a great way to,
Yeah.
one, get a user group started, right? People who already are sort of advocates for your app, but also get that feedback where you're sort of making a deal of like, hey, I need you to provide me weekly feedback, or you give them, some sort of form on the site where they can provide feedback of what they like, what they don't like, what features they'd like to see, what broke, what didn't break, things like that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's like what Reynolds says, like, he said like the user stories we create are not always exactly the path users will take, and that's true, right? And I think like so this is where getting people that don't know to test it and just try it out. And I like your idea too. I think is a great way to get beta testers is just offer them a free month. Offer them,
Yeah,
100
something
credits or
for free.
whatever your pricing is, because you're making a trade there for feedback from users who aren't you, who can try this, But you can also like if it's very new and you're getting close to beta, you can also just have friends and family try it and
Yeah,
just say, just use this. Here, it's
yeah,
free. Go ahead, just mess with it for like I just need some feedback to see if anything breaks or whatever, and go from there. And then
yeah.
they'll give you feedback too about like design, look, is it smooth, all that stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to mention two other things. One is Anthony had mentioned Hotjar, which is another one sort of like Sentry, but it's more just monitors like how people interact with your web page. That's a good one. And the other thing is, I think this is one of the most missed things by developers. And this is extremely important. When you go to build an app, you should not be building really anything until you have clearly defined who this app is for and what
Yeah.
problem it solves. Because I think the next logical step here is after you've done beta testing and you sort of have it out there, you need to market this, right? People don't just find apps by searching the internet usually, right? There's some sort of marketing. You have to build up a user base first, and you can't do that unless you know who the person is. And I don't just mean like, oh yeah, this is for, you know, I don't know,
People who
hairstylists
like
who,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you want to define as distinctly as possible an exact avatar and really make it true to life. Like this person's name
Here's where
is this, they live here, they are this age, and you can maybe define multiple if you need to, but as precise as you possibly can get, because then you can start speaking to them exactly. Like if I know, I'm speaking to a barber, right? I'm using the hairstyle. I don't know why I'm using
we talked
hairstylist
about
today,
haircuts
but
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking to a barber, I use the language that a barber uses, right? Or if I'm talking to a lawyer, I use the language that a lawyer uses when I advertise to them. And that makes my
This is where
advertising
also
better. Yeah.
this is where like the creating PRDs and stuff with AI is
Yeah.
great because you can also like I've done this before too, where I'll just give them an idea of like this is the area I'm focused on, like health and fitness or whatever, or
Yeah.
hairstylist or whatever, and then here's what I think my audience is. Can you help me refine it? And then you get a
Yes.
much more refined target because that's going to help you too for like when you do advertise and go on Facebook or go on like Reddit or go on Instagram or something, you can be really granular. And the more granular you can
Yes.
be, the better, especially early on.
Yeah, and those advertising platforms allow you to target people very specifically by
Yeah.
individual interests, age, like income status, location, all these different things. And I mean, this is for people who don't have sales experience or marketing experience. If you're trying to market to everyone, you're marketing to nobody. You have to speak very specifically, exactly to the person that you're trying to market to. Otherwise,
That
you're
book
basically
Story
appealing to
Sell is
nobody.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great book.
That's the other
Um,
thing. There's lots of stuff out there too. Like if you're not, because this is the one thing I think all developers struggle with. We're not we don't have necessarily these skills unless you did that maybe in the past of like marketing and like thinking about the end user that much. So like there's plenty of books out there to help you with this. Like I just mentioned Storycell is a great one for
Yeah.
like creating like copy and stuff for ads and like
Yep.
understanding how to target people is a really good way to go about it. Like, but think about that too. Like there's all these resources you can utilize to then, you have to put that time in. The time you put in development, you're probably going to put in roughly about the same amount of time trying to get people to use it.
Yeah. Anthony mentioned in the comments, he buying is expensive and getting participants in surveys has been tough with quality data anyway. I don't really recommend doing surveys, and the reason why is there's no incentive for people to really give you information in a survey
Yeah.
that's worthwhile. I mean, like, and by that I mean like maybe just a form. You have to incentivize them to do that. So maybe if you're like, hey, I'm opening this up to beta testers, and you're targeting your avatar, and then you're like, if you complete this survey, I will,
Give
provide
you
you with
X
this
number of
information.
credits
Yeah,
or yeah.
but I think it's almost better to refine like what that is before you even start building your app. Like, and I'll give you like from personal experience, right? Is like one of the more recent apps that I built is called Renew Pick, and I clearly defined the avatar before I even started building the app. Like I knew I wanted to target people who were 40 to 50 or older because I knew they would have old pictures that they wanted renewed. Americans, like I defined who this avatar was, and then I literally took that avatar and gave it to like my AI model when I was building the PRD for the
It's the
app.
same thing with
And
Mojo too. Yeah.
yeah, and what's amazing is because it knew the avatar so well, all of the text content on all of the pages is targeted to those
Well,
people. And
that's what's awesome, dude. Is like
yeah,
the landing page, your test, everything
everything.
that it sets
Yeah,
up
the
is like,
testimonials were all
oh,
people who
it's
are like
great.
40 to 50 plus,
Yeah.
like, with the same experience. Like, hey,
Language.
I was doing like
Yeah.
a memorial for somebody, and this helped me like rebuild, recreate their photos. Like, it's really helpful to do that, because if you're building an app and then you're trying to define an avatar afterwards, your app's already built sort of generalized and you're not targeting that person. Like one of the other things that it did, which is really nice, is because it was targeting people who are 40 to 50 plus, it assumed that they didn't really know how to use computers that well. So it works with a one button click. Like they literally just
Yeah.
upload a picture and press the button and that's it, right? It's not for tech savvy people. So defining that is really important. I think in some cases, like for market research of like, hey, what would help solve a problem for you, I think surveys might be helpful. But if it's like to define an avatar, I don't know if that's sort of where you're going with that, or your marketing. I think it's a little bit late in the game for that.
Yeah, I think overall, like the important thing to keep in mind for this, just in general, when you're talking about this, is like you're thinking of the whole thing, right? You're
Yeah.
planning out from beginning to end, and you're being very intentional early on, thinking about like who do I want to target? Why is this important to them? What end does it solve? And you should already have a problem in mind that you've already figured out because you've looked on social media and stuff and done some research and figured out what pain points people have, things like that. And
Yeah.
then you know who you're targeting broadly and you can make it a lot better overall. And I think all this is important for it. It's a big step and it takes a lot of time. And it's just something like I think we just think like it's done, it's out there. Now like
Yeah.
it's
And it
good.
doesn't work
It
that
doesn't work.
way. Yeah.
Nope.
One
Because
other
there's a
thing.
million things out there, you know?
Yeah, there's a million things out there. And like, I mean, you don't know what's out there unless somebody tells you, right? Like we don't use the reason why huge brands like Coca-Cola exist is because they continue to market. Everybody knows the name Coca-Cola, but you still see Coca-Cola ads all over the place, right? They're just top of mind because they continuously market. So you need to
I
market.
was thinking about that this week because like Gatorade's a huge brand because it's been around forever and it did a ton of marketing back in the day,
Yeah.
but you don't really see it doing much marketing right now. But in terms of electrolytes, you see Element everywhere you go. Like literally every
Mm-hmm.
channel on YouTube is advertising Element,
Yep.
and they've captured a huge market, especially in the little packets of
Yep.
electrolytes because of the marketing that they do, and they probably stole a lot from Gatorade.
Well,
And
yeah.
what's crazy is they charge like a freaking ton of money for salt. Like
Yeah.
literally, it's like the most insane business model. Like they're like, yeah, we just have like a mixture of salt and we charge you like $5 a packet. Like it's crazy, but
Yeah.
they just focus on marketing, and I think that's one of the hardest things. I would say this too, and I think this is an important point: is your marketing doesn't end with a Facebook ad, right? You will get people onto your site and they might try it, but you want to capture an email from them, right? Email marketing is one of the cheapest forms of marketing available because really it costs the cost of like an email service provider, which is maybe like $20, $30 a month. And you can continue marketing. And if you capture that email, you can retarget people on other platforms. So you can build like a custom audience. So I'll just sort of break it down for everybody here. So let's say I build an app. People have to sign in using Google or an email address. You verify that email address to make sure you're getting a real email address. That's really important.
You already have their email now.
Yeah. So now you have their email and you can build an email list. Now the person tries the app, but
real quick, on verifying it, if you're using like OAuth sign in or like most auth providers, they'll already do it for you.
Yeah,
so it's really easy.
It for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you verify that email. Now you have an email list, right? So some people are going to buy, some are not. Well, guess what? You can keep emailing them, right? Because you already have their email. How many emails do we receive on a daily basis from companies that we maybe looked at once and they just keep emailing us every single week? Well, that's the reason they do that is because they know that if they keep emailing you, you'll probably make a purchase at some point. So that's step one is you can retarget, you can give them discounts, you can build a story, you can build connection with them, keep them as a warm lead, right? And that's part of what it takes to build a really successful app.
Oh my gosh, and probably now, because I built email lists before ChatGPT, but now with ChatGPT, oh my gosh, you can have it write all the content for you.
Literally,
that would be so much easier now.
Yeah, you can have it like build you 30 emails in 5 minutes, like literally. Right. So it doesn't take a lot of work. Yeah.
If you know your audience and stuff that specifically too, you set up a project in ChatGPT where you just tune stuff out as you need it. Yeah.
And then the other thing you can do is you build a custom audience, which is really cool, right? You can build two. You can build one that's like just people who've signed up. You can also build one that's people who have purchased. And you can take that custom audience of emails and feed that back into Facebook or any of these marketing platforms as a custom audience. And it will target people who are similar to that person that are more likely to actually make a purchase. Like it will go out and optimize its ads for those people, like your buyers, which is a really, really powerful tool that not a lot of people know about. But it's a great way to, limit your ad spend and increase the optimization of that.
I was gonna say too, I think this is something like, I know it's a part of the process like developers don't necessarily love, obviously, but it's something you need to learn if you're gonna do this. And just know there's so many tools. Like there's AI, there's so much stuff out there to use. So utilize it and just plan. And I think that's the best way to go about it. But at the end of the day, because you need ads too. You're gonna have to create the ads yourself, right? So using AI, having a clear audience, understanding how to create the copy and stuff will be important.
Yeah, and that's a great point is like you can use AI to build the copy because it is tough. And what I typically do is give it a prompt, give it the avatar, tell it what I'm trying to build. Like I want, Facebook ad description needs to be 125 characters. And then I'll say like, give me like 10 variations. And one of the things that's pretty cool is a lot of these platforms, you can input multiple variations and it'll optimize automatically for what gets most clicks. But if not, at least you have multiple variations that you can look at and be like, I like that one better. Don't just go with like the first one it pumps out because you want to see what.
And the last thing is too, when you're first starting this, I think, like if you use any of these ad platforms, they give you a ton of analytics. Look at it. And then, if an ad's not doing well early on, switch it to a different one. Do a couple test runs, see which one gets the most, engagement, and then go from there. That'll give you a good idea as well.
Yeah. I will add one other thing, which is if you're sort of just thinking about creating
we keep adding one more thing.
Yeah, just one more thing.
One more thing, we're done.
Okay, Columbo.
Yeah, just one more thing. So if you're building a new app, like if you haven't built something before, I would recommend building an app that solves a problem that you yourself have. And that way you are the avatar and you already know all this information about what are your pains, what are your struggles, what are your fears, what are your like weaknesses, those sort of things, so that when you do go to advertise, you already know your target avatar. It's basically you. Like, you're building an app that solves a problem for you. There's more people like you out there. And it's much easier to market to those. Like, I don't know a lot about being a lawyer, so I'm not going to go out and try to build an app for lawyers and then market to lawyers, because I don't know the first thing about the language lawyers use or what their fears and, insecurities are, or anything like that.
Objection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
No, but I think it's a good point, right? It's like, if you're starting out, target yourself, because that's going to make it the easiest at first. And then you'll learn all these things as you go and get better at it. Each time, each iteration is going to get better.
yeah,
And
exactly.
just keep working. I mean, that's all you can do, is keep working at it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for the topic, Anthony. And if anybody else
Yeah.
ever has suggestions or questions, feel free to like comment in the YouTube videos, email us, whatever. We'll,
Yeah,
check it
let
out.
us know. We're happy to discuss what's on your mind. And yeah, with that, thank you guys for hanging out with us another Saturday morning. If you're inside our Code Noobs inner circle, we will see you in about 20 minutes. Otherwise, enjoy your Saturday. Go out and get some sunshine and rainbows and all that good stuff.
All right.
Cool.
Later.
Peace,
See you
guys.
guys later.